I used to think anger looked a certain way. You know, yelling, fighting, losing control. But that's not always what it looks like. You know, sometimes anger is quiet. It just sits there and kind of simmers underneath the surface, and eventually it starts building. And that was kind of the point where I was at. You know, everything that happened with the tension at home, feeling out of place everywhere I went, something inside of me genuinely started changing. You know, I wasn't the same kid anymore, but I couldn't explain why I wasn't. I just knew deep down inside that I was carrying something that I probably shouldn't have been carrying. And it started showing up in small ways in my life. You know, I had a short temper. I was always shutting people out, and I never really cared about the things that I used to care about. And I stopped opening up completely. And even when people asked me what was wrong, I would just sit there and say, I'm good. Because honestly, what was I supposed to say? I don't feel right, but I don't know why. That doesn't make sense to people when you say it. So instead, you just keep it in. And the more you keep it in, the heavier it gets. And eventually, it has to come out somewhere, right? And that's the part that nobody really talks about. When you don't deal with what's going on inside of you, it doesn't just disappear. It turns into something else. For me, it's like I talked about in the beginning of this video. It turned into anger. But it wasn't the anger that was always explosive, but it was constant. It was this never-ending pressure inside, kind of like a tightness inside my chest that never really went away. And the worst part about it is I started aiming it at the wrong things. You know, I started aiming it at people who didn't deserve it. I started aiming it at situations that had nothing to do with the root of it. And I was doing all of that because I didn't understand my own emotions at the time. And when you don't understand your emotions, you don't and can't control where they actually land. And that's how you start damaging the things around you without even realizing it. Just sitting here after writing and all the self-reflection, and even now as I kind of do these videos and stuff like that, I wasn't just angry. I was hurt, I was confused, and I felt alone. But instead of dealing with it, I buried it. And when you bury things like that, they don't stay buried, they grow. And eventually, sooner or later, they come back up. And it's usually at the worst possible time.